Hi, I'm Jim Paxson. Tonight we have a very special edition of Arizona Wildlife Views. More than 20 years ago, a herd of bighorn sheep disappeared from these mountains near Tucson. Tonight's story is about some dedicated people and their incredible efforts to bring the bighorn back. Watch and enjoy.
Arizona Wildlife Views is brought to you by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and the Heritage Fund, lottery dollars working for wildlife. Some projects made possible by the Sport Fish and Wildlife Restoration Fund. The late 1800s and early 1900s were nearly disastrous for Arizona's bighorn sheep. Those iconic animals were decimated by disease and unregulated hunting. That all changed when Arizona Game and Fish put strict limits on hunting and started restoring bighorn sheep populations across the state. Since the 1950s, Game and Fish has translocated hundreds of sheep from healthy herds to mountain ranges where they had completely or nearly died out. Now, Arizona's bighorn sheep population is about 6,000 strong and growing. It's a picture of success. But that picture is far from fully developed.
There's that same ram, but I think there he is, sacked out, enjoying the view. There's a large group, 27. There's 3 rams in that bunch. I was excited. I couldn't wait to see if I could take pictures.
Tucson resident Joe Sheehey took these photographs in the mid-1970s. At the time, he had no idea they'd become some of the last visual evidence of bighorn sheep in the Santa Catalina Mountains. Located in the Push Ridge Wilderness area, that rugged range of deep canyons and steep rocky ridges at Tucson's northern border has been home to bighorn sheep for thousands of years. Signs at this trailhead seem to confirm their presence. But for a long time, these signs were merely souvenirs, sad reminders of bighorn sheep that disappeared from this area in the late 1990s.
Certainly back in the 70s and 80s, that was the farthest thing from my mind. That was the primary range of the sheep, all this country that we're looking at from right here. In the early 90s, I purposely went from place to place where sheep just, they like to stay, they like to bed. You always saw beds and sheep sign, and that was absent. And I knew we were circling the drain at that time.
Nobody knows for sure what happened, but people were most certainly part of the problem. As Tucson's population grew, so did human pressures on sheep and their habitat. In addition, the Forest Service had become highly skilled at suppressing wildfires, good for homeowners in the Catalina foothills, but not so good for bighorn sheep. Naturally occurring seasonal wildfires once promoted an open and grassy habitat that gave sheep a good source of food and clear, unobstructed views to more easily spot approaching predators. But after decades of fire suppression, the mountain was overgrown with vegetation, making it easier for mountain lions to ambush bighorn sheep. People, predators, drought, disease, there are many theories about what happened to the sheep. But one thing is certain, by the end of the 1990s, bighorn sheep were no longer present in the Santa Catalinas. They were erased from these mountains, but not from the memories of locals like Joe Sheehey.
I've looked up at this mountain for many years, and and really felt sad that we didn't have sheep up here anymore.
That all changed in November of 2013. Bighorn sheep were back in their native habitat in the Santa Catalina Mountains. They were put there by the Arizona Game and Fish Department in cooperation with the Coronado National Forest and an unlikely partnership of diverse wildlife interests who formed the Santa Catalina Bighorn Advisory Committee in 2012.
I think we need to tackle that.
It's comprised of local residents like Joe Sheehey, who represents the Arizona Desert Bighorn Sheep Society. Other members represent the Wilderness Society, Sky Island Alliance, the Arizona Wilderness Coalition, and the Center for Biological Diversity.
It's relevant, it's hands-on, it's in their backyard.
So you have folks that generally, when they do sit around the table, are arguing with each other. Or when you see the names or the logos on a piece of paper, it's usually as plaintiff and defendant, right?
Everybody's all right with that?
And you know, I'm not going to kid you and say that every time we sit down, we do have cookies and water, but it's not always fun. There's been some head scratching, some head shaking. There's been even at times maybe a small clash of cultures, but what's emerged out of, I think we're on our 33rd or 34th meeting at this point, has been this mutual respect among the people around the table and a real willingness to see this succeed and to try to think of, you know, can we look at a better model for natural habitat and species conservation in Arizona that's not built on conflict, that's built on respect for each other's positions and expertise, and a desire to find a way forward that works for everyone.
These sportsmen and environmentalists set aside their differences to work together on a common goal: to repatriate bighorn sheep to the Catalinas and restore the mountain's natural ecosystem. Bringing bighorns back to the Catalinas had been talked about for decades, but finally the time was right for a variety of reasons. Wildfires in the early 2000s improved much of the bighorn's historic range. In addition, bringing dogs into the bighorn sheep management area is prohibited. And there are strict limits on off-trail hiking during lambing season.
So it was kind of like, well, the fires happened. We have the trail restrictions currently in place. We better put sheep up on that mountain and at least give it a try. This mountain deserves to have bighorn sheep back on it, and bighorn sheep deserve to be on the mountain.
This is just good biology, good wildlife management, and we're doing what we've done throughout the state for, since the 50s. This is the 31st translocation effort that we've done in the state. We've taken a population that at one time was near 1,500 sheep, and now the population is in excess of 5,000, almost close to 6,000, and it's because of efforts just like this.
Now some of those sheep can be used to start a new herd in the Santa Catalina Mountains. It's a process called translocation, capturing sheep in one part of the state and moving them to another.
The sheep are being captured mostly to the north of us.
Sounds easy, but it's really quite complex. It can take months, even years, to get a translocation off the ground. But it finally happened for the Catalina Bighorn Sheep Reintroduction Project in November of 2013. Helicopter crews spent 2 days capturing bighorn sheep in the Trigo Mountains near Yuma and the Plomosa Mountains near Quartzsite. It takes a highly skilled pilot to follow sheep through this untamed terrain while maneuvering his ship into position to give the net gunner a decent shot. He takes aim with a special gun that launches nets instead of bullets. When a sheep is finally netted, the mugger is first on the ground to grab hold of the animal until the others arrive to help get it ready for transport. Putting a blind on the bighorn calms it down almost immediately. Then it's carried to the copter for a short trip to the staging area. It's a thrilling and perilous process.
Very exciting. It was a little bit nervous this morning because it was my first day net gunning. So I think I ended up with 4 sheep and didn't have any mishaps or anything. There's a lot of risk that unless you're very safe and go about things in a safe manner and put safety as top priority, that could go wrong, and everyone else in the ship is could be affected by you. So
here comes our bird.
Safety is always a primary concern, as is the welfare of wildlife. Animals can get stressed out and overheated.
You got the horns real quick?
So it's important to keep the sheep calm and cool.
Watch it, guys, watch it.
Members of the processing team work quickly to minimize the amount of time each sheep is handled by humans. A tangled net can sometimes slow them down.
Okay, we're clear.
Otherwise, they're like a well-oiled machine. Moving bighorn sheep off stretchers and into crates for the journey to their new home near Tucson.
Got him. As I was growing up as a young adult in Tucson, there was lots of bighorns in the Catalinas. I spent a number of hours viewing them. That's a pretty interesting ram. He's a beautiful little ram. Number 33, and that's the unit he's going into. So that's pretty cool. When they died out, it was really a travesty as far as I was concerned, and I was really excited when we talked about this project. And when I came on the commission as a commissioner, I wanted to see sheep as a priority on the Catalinas. This is my last year. We're going to have sheep in the Catalinas, so I'm really excited about it. Where are we going? When I have grandkids, I want to see them having the same ability to go out there and look at sheep on the Catalina Mountains as I have had. That was a nice little ram there. He wasn't stressed very bad either. His temperature didn't go up. It was probably the handlers, I think, that was keeping him controlled. You know.
So you're going to go with that?
I'm going to go with that, yeah.
Helicopter after helicopter, and sheep after sheep, this goes on all day long.
These boxes are full, and tomorrow when we go to the other site, we'll fill the other side.
It continues the following morning at a new staging area just east of Quartzsite.
Give me a full CC on her.
Once again, veterinarian Ann Justice Allen is on location, making sure the sheep are healthy.
My role is pretty much twofold. One, it's to assess the condition of the sheep as they come in from the capture. And then my second role is to assess the health of the population as a group for the disease status for various different diseases that the bighorn sheep get or have been exposed to. In case you didn't know, this one has a snotty nose.
Each bighorn gets a thorough checkup, complete with nose and throat swabs. The medical team also collects blood and tissue samples while keeping a close eye on the sheep's vital signs.
Did you get a temperature? Not yet.
Meanwhile, each sheep gets a numbered ear tag for identification purposes. And for this project, the bighorns are also fitted with a bonus accessory, a GPS collar. The satellite technology will allow wildlife managers to track the sheep, and it will provide valuable data to researchers.
For this project, these collars are going to be incredibly valuable because we really want to understand how the bighorn sheep use this mountain range.
The collars will also transmit a mortality signal whenever a sheep dies or stops moving for a long period of time.
It will send a text to the biologist alerting them that there might be a mortality so that we can go out and investigate.
Mountain lions are a huge threat to bighorn sheep, and there are plenty of lions in the Santa Catalina Mountains. Losing sheep to predators is inevitable, but limiting those losses is critical to this recovery effort. The science is simple. Until the bighorn herd is large enough to withstand natural predation, some amount of predator control would be necessary.
We need to tackle that.
It's the most complicated and controversial issue the advisory committee had to deal with.
Yeah, mountain lions are the biggest issue for a lot of reasons. You know, it's a very emotional issue for people to see, you know, mountain lions removed from the wilderness. And if that, you know, has to happen, even on some limited scale, it would cause a lot of consternation with the public, I think. And of course, you know, with conservation groups as well, depending on how it's done.
In the end, the committee agreed on a very conservative approach to predator control. It would be temporary and targeted at only those individual lions directly linked to a bighorn kill. It would buy time for the bighorn herd to grow and become self-sustaining.
And then, you know, you have a robust population and there's lion predation, and it doesn't really make a difference. I mean, it gets you back to the natural balance that used to be there.
Back in southwestern Arizona, day 2 of the capture was winding down. A grand total of 31 sheep had been captured, processed, and loaded into boxes on a long platform trailer.
And then next year we'll look at getting 30 more from another location in the state, and we'll do up to 3 translocations into the Catalina Mountains to hopefully reestablish that population.
By this time tomorrow, those 7 rams and 24 ewes would be exploring their new home in the Santa Catalina Mountains. The morning of November 18th, 2013.
We don't know exactly where these sheep are going to go.
History was about to be made, and dozens of people showed up to be part of it.
It's going to be real important to try and remain stationary, try not to move, try to keep your voices low.
Members of the advisory committee and other VIPs enjoyed the honor of releasing the sheep.
1, 2, 3.
They lifted the container doors, revealing some confused and cautious animals, understandably hesitant to leave the relative safety of their momentary mobile homes. But once the first bighorn leapt to freedom, others quickly followed. A few stragglers had to be coaxed into the wild. Then the trailer was turned around for another round of releases. It was a textbook translocation, and a good morning for everyone who worked so hard for so long to make this moment happen.
It's just very exciting to be here and to see these sheep run up the mountain.
It was just really rewarding. For the first time in more than a decade, desert bighorn sheep are living in Push Ridge in the Santa Catalinas.
A watershed event, most definitely. I really feel fulfilled, I guess is probably the best word I can come up with.
Welcome to wildlife management. It's years of planning, punctuated by seconds of excitement that you got to see this morning. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and we're really glad that you came out and shared this with us. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
But the honeymoon ended rather quickly. Within weeks, a bighorn was killed by a mountain lion, followed by another and another. By the end of March, 16 sheep were dead. At least 14 of them were killed by mountain lions, and 3 lions had been lethally removed.
This has gone too far.
People were frustrated, emotions were running high, and critics of the project seized the moment.
Do we want more of this? No!
A small but vocal group of protesters showed up outside the March Game and Fish Commission meeting. It was held in Oro Valley, just a stone's throw from the Catalina Mountains. In the midst of all this turmoil, there was a silver lining. Bighorns were having babies.
Yeah, that was the birth of the lambs was an emotional turning point, I suppose. The first lamb, bighorn sheep, born in the Catalinas in more than a decade is a pretty stunning moment.
But the good news didn't stop there. After March, the bighorn population suddenly stabilized. 7 months went by without any more mountain lion-caused mortalities.
And one of the neat things about that is that we can see where they are and where they've been, and each of
Data from the GPS collars indicate that the sheep may have finally settled into some ideal habitat.
They worked around and they kind of finally migrated and figured out that this habitat, and this is where they're at now, was the best that they could find on the mountain.
After evaluating the experience of year one, the advisory committee recommended that the project move forward. In November of 2014, Game and Fish was added again. The second year of bighorn captures took place near Canyon Lake on the Tonto National Forest. This time, the project was getting national attention. Wildlife celebrity and conservationist Jack Hanna was featuring the project on his television program Into the Wild. As cameras rolled, Hanna helped carry sheep from the helicopter to the processing area. Then he and his wife Susie rolled up their sleeves and got down to business.
The one thing I did today is I shot that gun, or what that thing is. What is it, net gun? I'm gonna tell you something. I was in the Army, and I was raised on a farm, all right? We shot 12 gauges, 10 gauges, that kind of stuff. Yeah! And it like blew me back over. There's a plastic rabbit, I was just trying to put the net over it. The net landed like 2 feet from it. But how those guys do it in a helicopter, if it wasn't for them, they couldn't have the sheep.
A total of 14 sheep, 11 ewes and 3 rams were loaded into the trailer at Canyon Lake. More sheep would be coming from southwest Arizona, but for now, the priority was getting these sheep down to Tucson and up into the Catalina Mountains. The mountains were just waking up when Jack Hanna stepped to the trailer and swung open the gate. The bighorns didn't take long to put on a show.
The good Lord put these animals here for a certain reason, obviously. What animals have done to us as mankind has been incredible, what they've given us. And right now we've taken some of that away. And so the greatest thing I could ever do is open that gate today and see the sheep back here on these mountains. I mean, this is the epitome of what I do in all of my work. I'm impressed here, what I've seen today. It's one of the finest releases. I mean, it has to be probably one of the finest releases I've ever seen.
Hanna knows from experience that managing wildlife is never easy. It's always complex and sometimes messy. It's hard to predict what wild animals will do. That's why Arizona Game and Fish practices adaptive management on projects like these. It starts with a science-based plan, but built-in flexibility allows wildlife managers to adapt to changing or unforeseen circumstances on the ground.
Adaptive management is basically having, good information to make decisions.
The GPS collars have helped a lot.
They give us real-time data on their locations.
Knowing where the sheep are located allowed wildlife managers to shrink the area where predator management takes place.
We were having some mortalities that were outside of this really good habitat. And we decided to delineate a boundary, and sheep that get killed outside of the boundary, we won't pursue with our lion hunter.
Collar data was also the basis for choosing a new release site close to those sheep that are already on the mountain.
And our hope is that they will get into that territory. It's good habitat, it's got good escape terrain, and they'll remain there.
Now, the collars are not cheap. They're the main reason this 3-year project carries an estimated $600,000 price tag. But the average taxpayer pays absolutely nothing. This project is funded with private donations, hunting license fees, and a federal excise tax on the sale of guns and ammo. Day 2 of the release started with a brilliant sunrise. "16 sheep bolted from their boxes and returned to their proper place in the Catalina Mountains."
It got a little emotional for me, to be honest with you. It kind of brings us back to where we started again and gives us a hope for what we used to have.
Stay tuned because there's more coming. It's not the end of the story yet. We're still moving forward.
Moving closer to a day when desert bighorn sheep can coexist with mountain lions in a naturally functioning ecosystem, so future generations can see bighorn sheep in the Santa Catalina Mountains. Not by looking at faded photos, by having an opportunity to see with their very own eyes a picture of success.
Well, that's our show for tonight. If you'd like more information about bighorn sheep or other Arizona wildlife, visit our website at azgfd.gov. For all the fine folks at Arizona Game and Fish, I'm Jim Paxson. Thanks for watching.